Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Zoom into Wine. It's time for the show and your host, Ian Blackburn.
Oh, great to have you here.
Great to be.
Tonight we're going to be doing something really fun, and for those of you watching on Facebook, we get together every Wednesday night and try to take on a topic or a grape variety. We have a whole set of events called Zoom into Wine, and we deliver little tasting kits. And tonight I added a little fun bonus white for you guys to start with. And I didn't tell you what it is because I want you to guess. I want you to tell me what you think it is. I want you to try it and see if you like it. We do a lot of blind tasting. Sometimes I tell you what the wines are, but I don't tell you what order they are going to be tasted in. But it's always great to taste and to develop your own opinion about a wine before I tell you why you should like it or why you shouldn't like it. So cheers to you. Thank you for joining me tonight. We've been doing the Zooms now it's going to be 2 years in May, and we'll continue on Wednesday nights throughout the entire 2022. And we are robustly programming our STARS events to be the highlight of every month. Coming up, we have the Stars of Baja, which we'll have 6 winemakers from Baja. In fact, I'm calling you right now, or Zooming with you right now, from the Los Angeles International Wine Competition, where I'm sitting in a room with about 100 different wine judges from all over the world, and a couple of the winemakers from Baja just happened to be here, didn't know they were going to be here. So kind of cool that I get to connect with them in advance of our STARS event. But these are really going to be fun, beautiful wines. You want to learn a lot about what's going on in Baja. This will be the way to do it. And then, of course, I'm also going to try to encourage you to join me. I'm going to Baja in May for an extended weekend, and we're going to go visit some of these winemakers and some others as well. And there's great hotels and restaurants, and you can find all about that trip if you sign up for our interest list at winela.com. So hopefully you've spent a minute with this white wine and we can look at it together and assess it out. It's got a little bit of advanced golden color. Can someone tell me why that color is in the glass? That kind of color would appear with some age, right? And a slight amount of oxidation that could occur in the bottle. It's kind of got more of a gold, and so it's picking up a few years here. When you go to smell it, pretty restrained, not super aromatic. Got to get pretty close to the glass to really kind of start to detect things. Alcohols are pretty, I'd say lower in general, which would indicate that it's growing in a cooler environment, a cooler place, something potentially like the old world. Let's taste it. Very subtle, still pretty zippy with acidity. The nose kind of gives me a little bit of an earth tone. There's a little bit of a question mark about the winemaking with use of wood or lees here. And the style of wine is really interesting. It's not something that many of us spend much time ordering or thinking about, but I've got a little slideshow and I want to get into it, and I'll be able to show you what this wine is all about. Again, tonight we're going to be tasting 3 iconic red wines, but I just wanted to get us a little head start, a little white wine, maybe help cleanse the palate a little bit, get you ready for this sensory experiment that we're going to go on here with three Titans. Now, these are all very young wines that we're going to be tasting tonight, but this is the moment where some people may decide to start to acquire wines like this and to lay them down in your wine cellar for a period of time. Blind tasting, I always love to do it because it really does help us build more of a relationship with the wine, can decide whether you like it or not. So anybody have an opinion about this wine? Like it, not like it, to this, to that? You're a quiet group. Can you hear me?
I'll be bold. I like it. It's like you said, very restrained. I sense some age on it. I'm not sure what it is. If I had to guess, if that's what you're getting to, I'm almost wondering if it's an older Chardonnay, but I'm not sure if I can place where it's from.
Yeah, the color looks like Chardonnay. The mouthfeel, pretty kind of a little bit of a creaminess, but the acidity is pretty intense, and the aromatics don't really give me that typical Chardonnay type of aromatic, apple, pear type stuff. But it's a fairly inert white wine. I wouldn't say it's built up of a lot of character. It's something that you'd probably want to eat when less is more. And there are definitely moments for that. Very savory wine, and a lot of earth tones, a lot of smells like celery, potato kind of notes, and a lot of subtle spice. Well, let me put you out of your misery, take you into what the wine is. This is a really great value in, I wouldn't say it's collectible wine, but this is the type of wine that you could break out and impress some folks with for not the highest tariff. This is Muscadet. And you tend to think of Muscadet as being a light, bright, fresh, and I mean fresh like current vintage, could be something 2019, that you're not going to pay much for. This is a brand that has made their way in making ageable, age-worthy Muscadet, and this is, or last year was their current vintage. 2014 was their current vintage. So let's just take a second and watch this little video. I'm not going to play it all, but this is a grape called Melon de Bourguignon. It's grown in the Loire Valley. It's grown very close to the extreme coast, to the west coast of the Loire Valley. And it is what they grow in Muscadet. And the style here is extended contact with old wood and extended time on the lees. Very slow winemaking style. This is optimal with seafood. You're gonna have scallops, you're gonna have oysters, you're gonna have lobster. This is like one of the great seafood wines that you can ask for. And of course, they do that very well on the coast of France, near Normandy. And it's a smaller cellar. This is not a massive producer. It's brought in by one of the best wine importers. And so they really love the wine and they're committed to it. It's poured at great restaurants like French Laundry, and top seafood restaurants should think about having a SKU from them. And it's possible to age this wine for another 10 years. They sell wine, they sell versions back to like the 1960s in their cellar. So a really interesting wine to know a little bit about as we head into our first big red wine tonight from our friends at Henschke. I say it that way because on my first trip to Australia, I was taken around by a fantastic gentleman. And I always want to give him praise and thanks for helping me learn so much about Australia. I was a young businessman. I hadn't even quite yet left my full-time wine job. I was doing learn about wine, but Australia is such a big country to learn about. And he and his business, which was called Stars of Cabernet, which is interesting. He drove around people in his limousine, took them to great wineries, and he was referred to me by Wines of Australia and my studies, and he gave us a great value. We went in kind of the low season. It was also really hot. We were in Barossa Valley when it was about 115 degrees, one of the hottest weeks of the year. And he showed off a number of great appointments for me and took me to Henschke. This is a 150-year-old winemaking family. Their number one wine is one of the most collectible wines in the world. It's called Hill of Grace. And the Hill of Grace wine is really, really difficult to get. There's just so much made, and it's really, fought for all year long by retailers wanting to build their Henschke allocation. I got one bottle last year, and that was planned on. I worked very hard to get it. I'm hoping I can get another one next year. This wine that we're tasting tonight is called Mount Edelstone, and it is known as the baby Hill of Grace. And a lot of people, when they think of Australia and Shiraz, they think of big, hyper-ripe, hyper-saturated type of flavors. Yet the most expensive and the most collectible wines of Australia are made with the great restraint of the old world. Wines like Grange, wines like Hill of Grace, like this wine here. This is so pretty and so balanced and so refined and so elegant, and it has an amazing nose and character. And I want you to go ahead and start to taste it. We're going to watch just a moment of video from the Henschke family and take a look at how beautiful their location is. It's really peaceful. It's their own ecosystem. They grow everything with the highest ethos. In fact, Robert Parker has that new logo that he's giving out for high ethos wineries. Really old material, older vines. Australia has been, making wine for hundreds of years, and some of the oldest vineyards on the planet are in Australia. Actually, they've had less to do with phylloxera. They've had, and they have some just, the style of grape growing there are this untrained, untrellised, unwatered, dry farmed bush vines, and really special. So let's take a look at this little video. And there's no audio here. We'll just watch, and I'll talk over the top of it. I will need it to play, and it may take a moment. So the wines have a character of different types of herbs like sage, and that's what they're describing here in the nose of this wine. And they are walking through the Eden Valley, where they grow their fruit, and they get this teeny, concentrated type of clusters. And a lot of people are always surprised at how elegant these wines are. I think sage is a good call as I smell this glass, and you really get when I visited this spot, it was, like I said, it was a really warm day. It's a very simple place with they didn't build some modern mansion or modern winemaking facility. They used real good common sense and built something very practical very enduring. Doesn't take away from the beauty of the land, and they're really spiritual about their growing of their fruit, and their style, their winemaking is just really about showing off the character of the place. Now, this wine has been matured in 78% French and 22% American oak. It has, their harvest dates are always in March because they are 6 months ahead of us on the calendar, and their summers are winter and vice versa. Hope you guys get into the glass here and smell it with me, taste it, and feel how there's a textbook quality feel here that you start to, when you taste wine, so you first decide if you like it or not, but then you have to decide, what quality level are we tasting here, and the details that we're tasting, sensing, feeling, these are all incredibly high quality tonality, tenderness. There's a persistence that lets you know this is not a wine that has a 5 or 10 year type of window. This is a 50-year wine. This is a wine that I would love to be offering people a chance to taste something that's quite mature, but I get to buy these wines as they become available, and we're tasting current vintage.
Ian, can you tell me which number it is on the bottles? Sorry, I only got them as 3, 4, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah, you should have got 1, 2, 3, 4. The white one was number 1, and we're on number 2.
Okay, cool.
Lisa, are you tasting with me today?
I am. I was trying to decide because I'm not really a Shiraz person, but it's I like it.
Yeah, I would say that these great wines of Australia aren't made like Shiraz. Mm-hmm. They're not made like a Rhone Valley Syrah. They're made with kind of an elegance and a grace, like a great claret. Like I think a lot of people that drink Cabernet would taste this and be right at home. This has that kind of style presentation. It's not fruit bomb. There's no jelly. There's no jam. There's no upfront, super ripe. This is just really balanced from start to finish. The length is really pretty incredible, but it is delicate, and I think it takes a kind of a mindset to appreciate this, and maybe a little bit of reverence for what they're doing and how they're doing it.
You're gonna talk.
I'll go back into the website and just kind of see if I can pull that up. Because I am using the hotel's internet. If we were to have an internet event and this show would exit, I'll start it back up again as soon as I can get back online. I have to say that because you never know. Okay, so there's a couple of ways if you're interested in finding out more about these wines and what we're tasting. You can get to, you can go to our Zoom event catalog here and go right into the event and click right on the wine, or you can search using the little Q up in the corner next to the cart button. You can search for any wine on the website using that search button. But this is our first wine, comes in just light of $200 a bottle, and is considered a kind of an investment asset, investment grade wine asset. And I get about 6 bottles a year. I have 3 remaining. So if you're interested in participating, this does come in a really nice gift box, by the way. And they recommend keeping it in there because they really want to protect the wine from light and change of temperature. And so it's definitely a long-term equation, and a brand that you should know a little bit about, so that when you go out to dinner or are traveling the world and you want to order something fantastic, you might find this wine in super important places. Now, Hill of Grace is approximately $1,000 a bottle. So this is a fraction of that price, and kind of rewards a little bit of poor judgment, allowing us to open it up now. The Hill of Grace would not let us open it up now. It really needs much more time. But this lets you get a little closer to it for a pretty fair number. A lot of wines, $100 or $200 plus, that don't have the 150-year pedigree that this producer does. And wines of this nature have been getting kind of hoarded, I guess is the way I would describe the buying behavior in the wine collectors right now, because these great finds, these really key asset wines, collectibles that actually maybe, in challenging times actually keep going up in value. We're seeing wines disappear very quickly. There's a complete hole in the world looking for champagne. The champagne harvest in 2021 was destroyed, and that added to the fire. But a lot of people have been collecting and kind of building their stocks, knowing that there could be a day where we literally start running out of some of these great wines. So with that, let's move on to wine number 2. Unless anyone has any questions or comments about the Henschke, I'd love to hear more things. I do see a chat comment.
Oh, okay.
I was just
gonna...
thought it really opened up a little bit as it took it out of the refrigerator.
Little air.
Yeah.
Little time in the glass. Yeah. Jennifer,
I was just gonna say, to sort of echo what you were saying about, sort of in my mind, I see Shiraz and I'm thinking one thing, and this wine has just a tremendous amount of elegance to it. And I would say when I put my nose in the glass first, I kind of smelled through all 3 of the wines, and it just has a really distinctive nose to it. To me, I kind of almost get a little bit of a butterscotchy. There's a sort of a sweetness to the nose that's really compelling. And I thought this was, it looked like on the notes it said that these were 103-year-old vines, which kind of in my mind would explain some of the fineness of the tannins and sort of some of that elegance and kind of gracefulness that the wine has, because it seems to me like vines, as they get older, the way that they manifest their tannins really changes in that kind of way, where you get a little bit more sort of spaciousness in it. And it's not just pure power. It's got a lot of kind of layered complexity. So. That's
a very good point. Yeah, the vine age here is really a key element, ingredient in what they're presenting. And that's why they're such great stewards of this wonderful vineyard. And people are, clamoring to get something that's so rare, so special, so small production, high quality, that ages like a titan. These wines are built like that. And as I continue to smell, at least I agree with you, it's continuing to let you inside just a little bit at a time. And I really love that sage, kind of that sage note. And I don't know if you've ever cooked with sage, but it really is an interesting herb leaf that kind of curls up, and you put it in a pan with olive oil, and it takes on this new state, and the aromatic that comes off of that, kind of a toasted sage. Outstanding. Hope you enjoyed. let's move on to wine number 3. And I am carefully pouring wine number 2 back into my little vial so I can spend a little bit more time with that later. Traveled without my tasting glasses. I forgot my couple of little things on this trip. Not too far away from home, but you're tasting 100 wines in a day. You don't want to drive anywhere. Tasted some really good stuff today, though. I'm on the lucky table. We got some. Anytime you're in a tasting competition and the category is $30 and up, you're at the good table. It's the $10 and lower that is the painful table to judge. All right, so we're in vial number 3 now, and we're going to taste the wine of Bruno Giacosa. I'll just go into the website now, show you kind of what we're looking at. This is one of the great producers, classic producers, been making wines. Barolo is not the oldest. A lot of people think Italian wine has been around forever, but Barolo really didn't kind of formally take great shape until the mid 1900s. And that's when it kind of really got organized. And the 1960s saw immense amount of innovation. By the 1980s, we started to even see vineyard designation focused on the labels. And that's how recent it was, 1980s. Giacosa's 1980 wines are selling for $500,000, $700,000 a bottle and up. This is the current vintage, which is considered one of the greatest vintages of all time, 2016 in Barolo. And to be able to get some Giacosa 16, I was super excited. It's going to take a while to sell this wine because it's probably, if people are looking for a wine to buy and consume right away, this is yet another one that you're going to want to wait maybe a decade before you get to open this one and really appreciate the bounty that it presents. But stylistically here, this is one of the artists, and he always gets great scores, and he has really important property and really important styling. Now, Lisa, I know of your love of Italian wines. I'm hoping this one makes you very happy.
Oh, just everything about it. And now my chef friend was just emailed that he's got great steak. If we could merge the two, if they could be just brought over here really quickly, it'd be perfect.
Yeah, you could do it.
We just bought a couple of plane tickets to Italy. We're going.
Awesome. I just had the great pleasure of taking a group in November, and we had the greatest timing. Yeah, it was something we planned for a while, and by the time we went to leave, it was like all green lights and no issues. The airports were still very, very inexpensive. They were really on top of their COVID game there, asking for vaccination cards everywhere, and it was really, Americans couldn't travel there until recently without a vaccine. I don't even know can we even travel outside of the US without a vaccine yet? I'm not sure. That might be changing here pretty soon. But to get to Italy at that time, you had to be vaccinated. So they just saw our US passports and knew that we were vaccinated to even be there.
I think that still applies.
I think so too.
I was kidding about the plane tickets. It's so good that I want to go there and drink it at its source.
Oh.
You could do it, David. You could do it. You can.
You can.
So let's go into our Zoom and just take a look at a couple photos. So if you're asked which Giacosa wine, you're drinking his estate called Folletto. And he used to, and still does, buy other great growers' fruits and makes single vineyard bottlings from a grower wines where he's buying the fruit. but this is the vineyard that he owns and he farms, his brand farms.
Whole world.
Here's the array of scores this wine has received. Picture of his optimal property. Serralunga is where we're at, inside of the Barolo zone. And this is a very traditional producer. Really believes in, making the wines age for a very long period of time. And the style of Barolo from a lot of producers that want to make it, bottle it, sell it, is often a riper, richer style that kind of allows you to drink it a little bit sooner. I would say you can drink this now, and it's so much fun to taste. But this has some like an iron fist guarding it right now.
Yeah, pretty closed down, at least on the nose. Very enjoyable on the palate. Smooth, silky balance.
Yeah. Yeah, the nose of a Barolo, if you're looking for, in its youth, if you're looking for more than tar and rose petals, then you're, in a young Barolo, you're not going to get too much. But over time, those protective, almost like metal type of, like you can almost smell nails sometimes in a real tannic wine like this. And those start to melt away and give you a little bit of access.
Maybe unfair, but I'm drinking it next to a 16 La Spinetta Barbaresco that is showing a whole lot more. But again, little apples and oranges.
Yeah, Barbaresco is softer, a little more feminine, a little more accessible, and La Spinetta style is much more hedonistic and riper, more wood, more everything. So this is a kind of more of a tightly wound example.
Oh, this is so good.
But I love getting inside that glass and really seeking, getting into that, just smelling that connection with the earth. We're talking about a wine that's probably, a point to a point and a half lower in alcohol than that Spinetta that you're talking about. That's part of his growing, hypothesis, his style that represents his brand.
Curious if anyone's tried any of other Giacosa's Crus before. Anyone here had some of the others that he produces?
I've tried many of his wines at different age. I've had some 85 Reserva, some 90s, and they're always kind of a showstopper. And they really get floral. They really get there's a lift as these wines get older, so that fruit just starts to lift up and really kind of spreads out the nose a little bit. Here it's just so tightly wound. But red garnet in color, showcasing elegant and fine aromas of fresh plum, cherry, and spice notes. The wine is dense and structured with great freshness on the palate and well-balanced tannins.
I was going to say, I really appreciate the textural experience of this wine, sort of as it goes into the mouth. There's sort of like almost like a bookended kind of quality. So it's sort of the attack is sort of this like freshness to it, almost like biting into like a really turgid grape, kind of like that kind of poppy sensation almost. And then it sort of goes through the palate, and then you get the sensation of the tannins. There's that sort of like back pressure. I think it's really I would love to see this in like 7-10 years. I think it's really interesting and exciting now, but I think it's definitely got more to say over time.
Yeah, and again, this, the opportunity to taste a wine like this and to acquire it and then put it in your cellar is probably the point I'm trying to get to, because these wines are, let me just go into, I had it open, let me see if it's still there. It's not. I'm just going to go into a wine searcher, look. Check out the options, Giacosa, hey, let's look at some 68, $800, $900. The wines got really good in the 1980s. Let's go to 85. There we go. $2,000 a bottle. And let me tell you, 85 and 2016 are probably equivalent vintages. So at some point in time, 2016 could be worth a hell of a lot more than it's currently. The 90 vintage. Let's go 97. Not a great vintage. 99. Not a great vintage. 2000's better. Here we go. And when you look at auction sites, remember those that aren't even closed yet, and there's another 20% you're going to put on top. But this producer, you won't find a 2006 here or a 2010. He was not happy with his wines. Didn't think they lived up to his brand. Bulked them out, got rid of them. So it's part of my 401k. Let me just put it that way. All right, we'll go back into our PowerPoint. And we're going to go into our third red wine, which is file number 4. And maintaining a theme of drinking great wines that are not yet quite ready to drink, but we want to take a look at them. We want to get under the hood and experience these things. This is last year's #1 wine in the world, the Wine Spectator. And I'm sure this is something some of you have heard of before, maybe even tasted past vintages of Dominus, but this is owned by Christian Moex. He's a phenomenal grower, producer in Bordeaux, and his family owns Chateau Petrus. Now, when his father passed away, that vineyard passed on to his older brother. So Christian, who helped make Petrus what it is, does not own Petrus. And so he, as most of families of affluence over there, started to diversify quite a ways back. And they acquired a vineyard in the Napa Valley with the help of Robert Mondavi and a number of other sage advisors, and bought a really significant estate. Now, the Moex name is synonymous with grape Merlot, and the Petrus property, the most famous note about that property is that it's all basically clay, and it's one of those very distinct properties that have blue clay in Pomerol, where Petrus is located. And this blue clay holds water, so Merlot actually thrives in blue clay and Cabernet does not. Napa Valley has some very good Merlot possibilities, but they're not as perfectly aligned in Napa Valley as, say, a blue clay vineyard in Pomerol. So after experimenting with some Merlot and some different blending ideas, this vineyard is pretty spot on a Cabernet vineyard. I remember my first visit in the early 1990s to Dominus, being able to see the facility. It was really built just as it is not a home. It is not anything but a very enduring property, and it's got a wonderful architectural story, which I'll tell when I get a picture of it up. But the sense that he's trying to convey here is he's not trying to be a Napa winery necessarily, falling in line with trends in the Napa Valley. He is trying to invent a wine that is in the Napa Valley that takes on his level of pursuits, represents his family and his beliefs, and kind of leans into the past. We used to make wines like this Dominus used to come out of the Napa Valley. Wines that needed 10, 15, 20 years in the bottle before they became what they were supposed to be. And if you're in the business of selling wine, you want to typically make something that people want to buy and open. But with a Bordeaux producer, their mentality is a little bit longer in its thought process. And so he brought his ideas and his wisdom and his affluence and his investment into the Napa Valley and built an iconic vineyard. And he's had some amazing winemaker talent come through and help make the wines, elevate the wines. But it's called Napa Nook. That's the name of the amphitheater, the foothills of the Micanus. And it's a large and contiguous property, which are not very many in number. 134 contiguous acres. I'm sorry, I just screened it over. There we go. And like I said, he did have Merlot in the vineyard, but that was removed. This is maybe as close as you can see the winemaking facility. He used very old Spanish architecture ideas. He took metal cages and filled them with large rocks and then stacked them on top of each other, so that from the inside of that building, you can actually look through the walls and see out, but from the outside of the building, you can't see in. And it's called a glorified industrial shed. That's the name of this architectural project. It looks fairly discreet and subtle from the outside, but as you get closer, it really has a much greater story, and a couple of amazing windows giving you an amazing view inside. It goes pretty deep into the ground where the barrel rooms are underneath the winery. And it's really a beautiful, but not ostentatious type of a place. Here's a picture of Mr. Molex looking quite dapper in the vineyards. One of the legends of Dominus is that before harvest, they go around and spray each cluster in the vineyard with water to remove the natural yeast from the vineyard, from the grapes. Why? Because he wants to use the Petrus yeast during fermentation. And that's a big commitment, big step in their winemaking process. 89 Cab, 6 Cab Franc, 5 Petit Verdot. 40% new barrel. 2018 is an optimal vintage for a property like this. Large property, get homogeny and ripeness. You get a big vintage as well. 18 was a pretty sizable vintage in crop load. Here, they still do a pretty severe selection. And as we go into smell, this beautiful Napa, iconic, long aging, 10 years minimum before you want to drink a Dominus wine. We're taking a look at the current 18 vintage, number 1 wine in the world last year. I mean, that is like, for a Napa wine to have that kind of restraint in the nose is pretty crazy. But you can still get a little of that dusty cherry, subtle little classic markers of Cabernet, eucalyptus mints, expensive spa kind of aromatics, cassis. Your teeth actually start to prepare themselves for the devastation of putting this tannic beast in your mouth, having it dry out your palate. Taste that and just appreciate. You're tasting that for like 20 seconds. And then the finish is just so tapered, like a finely tailored suit, just really kind of hugs your palate kind of perfectly, not left with any kind of like piece of wood in your mouth or anything like that. Just those tannins just continue to go on and linger. Wonderful tension, balance, elegance. And big judges, they tasted this wine and many agreed with the number of 100-point scores. The lowest score was the 97 points from the Wine Spectator, and they're the ones that named it the number 1 wine of the world. So pretty significant effort here. Not a huge production, 4,000 cases off of that size of a property. Now they do make a second wine called Napa Nook, which sells for a lot different price point. And it's made from younger portions of the vineyards where they do let it get a little riper. But even Napa Nook needs a couple of years in the bottle, but not like Dominus. This wine is made to be in your cellar for a long period of time, very slow in advancement. You can go back and buy Dominus from the 1980s, 1990s, and early 2000s. They're out there. They kind of move up in price point as this wine is taking price now. Napa Valley is getting more expensive. The wines are ramping up. We're now over $400 a bottle on this wine. And going forward, it'll probably start to get closer and closer to 500 over the next year or two. Of course, there won't be a Dominus 2000. That the fires in the Napa Valley, they may make some Napa Nook 2000, but I don't think they made any Dominus 2020. I'm sorry, that's the fire vintage. And so a lot of the big growers, they're just not going to put their best wines and make a vintage from that. There will be a 19, which is another very good year, but a little smaller and not quite as, I think some people did a very good job with their 19s, but as a vintage character, 18 probably a little bit superior in general statements. But some people, because of the way the fruit came in 19, they just were able to make a better wine. But 18 was a big vintage and really delivered wonderful balance and harmony and depth and character. Pretty. It's pretty vintage too.
Hmm.
There's a good picture of the shed. They typically don't have any professional visits. We were pretty handpicked when we were able to visit, and we weren't able to like go in and have a lunch or anything. We were able to take like a technical tour. I was with some professionals, and we were, students and journalists and stuff like that. So we were kind of there to see the facility and how things operate and stuff. But it's not a tasting room you get to go and visit without some sort of special access.
Gorgeous.
I'm glad you liked it, Lisa. And I think it's really pretty awesome. And also note that we've filled all these kits on Monday, so these have all been in the jars for 2 days. I'd say wines of this ilk in these jars probably could last 4 days, but they're probably better today than they were when we first opened them, because they need a little time and softness. So they're actually softer. You're like, wait, they're almost undrinkable, but they're really better than they were when we opened them. They were so tight. Costa Bravo, how you doing out there? You able to taste with us? I know I sent those kits to you.
Yeah, I'm a little lonely tonight. My wife's traveling, but yeah, very much enjoying this. It was a last minute sign up, but yeah, I have had some older vintages of this. This is very, I think you said it, there's tension there, but it's letting you in a little bit. And it's just very, like, I don't know. It's tempting to see how this is going to evolve. You can tell it's going to be really delicious. And that finish just goes on and on and on. It's awesome. Gosh, very cool.
Glad you like. I'm in total agreement with you. Our next few days are going to be interesting. Have a private event this weekend. Doing a beekeeper tasting at Cali Restaurant on Sunday. And we only have about 2 spots left, but if you want to come gather in person, 30 people, Cali Restaurant, a Michelin star restaurant in Los Angeles on Melrose. We're going to taste 11 vintages of beekeeper. We've got an awesome follow-up to this event. Next Wednesday night, we are doing our Pinot tasting, Oregon Pinot. We have a nice audience on board for that, so thank you for those of you that are joining us already. But the reason is that we're, as this world goes back to real life, I'm going to continue to try to pound this spot here on Wednesdays with really epic tastings, great wines. We're going to have 4 just sensational Oregon Pinots, 94s and 95 point wines. Take a look at Bergstrom, Purple Hands, Halcyon, and Domaine Serene. I want to introduce you to some of the smaller, better producers out there. And this is a deal, $35 to be able to taste that flight. You can always get a bottle kit from us too. And it's basically like discounted retail, $250 for the flight 4. But that's next week. And then the week after, we have our Stars of Baja, which again, 6 producers from Baja. We have a palate builder program, How to Taste Like a Pro. That's 12 wines blind. Little wine business class that we produce called Wine Business 101. My top values will return with some great values. A $15 flight for March 30th. Just always wanting to show off some good new acquisitions at the shop. I'm now at over 800 wines on the store. And probably one of the more exciting events we could produce is with the Duclos. Duclos is actually owned by Jean-Pierre Moex, that's Christian Moex's brother, and he is the owner of Dominus. And Duclos is the importer of grape Bordeaux, and I buy a lot of wine from Duclos for my store. They own a beautiful loft in downtown LA, and we are a number of containers that they've been waiting for finally arrived. And so we're going to be tasting the second wines from a lot of the great houses. They'll make a $200 bottle at Chateau Smith-O Lafite, but this is their Lejo Smith-O Lafite, and it's their second wine, and it's about a $50 bottle. Many of these wines are between $40 and $75 a bottle, and they're all from top producers, and many of them are either 14s, 15s, or 16s, and they're really allowing you to enjoy them now. At the tasting, great chef is going to be in town. He's moving here from New York, open a French restaurant. He's from the south of France. He does these kind of Basque-inspired tapa foods for trépas parties, and he's going to be there doing his pintos with our Bordeaux wines. This is the view off the patio at Duclos in their loft in the Arts District. They're right down the street from where our loft was and is no longer. But we are using their space, their kitchen, and it's quite a bit larger than my place. We'll have 40 people in the room, and there's only about 10 spots left. If you want to join us for Duclos, I would recommend grabbing a ticket. It's going to be a great night of gathering and wine and food and an epic location overlooking the city. With that, I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Oh, we have one more event that's on our calendar that we just announced. So I want to tell you, in early April, the 7th, I believe, I'm going to confirm that in a second. We're doing a dinner it's Korean barbecue dinner with wine, and I've did this a number of times over history and had just really awesome turnout and interest. And I always look very hard for great places to do events. I have been championing this restaurant for a number of years, and I'm hoping I find it here. Let's see. Here it is, April 7th. The restaurant's called Umbu Grill, and they do a really good job. It's clean, it's nicely appointed, which are two things that most Korean barbecue restaurants are not clean, nor are they nicely appointed. They do really fresh banchan, beautiful salads, and lots of fermented beans and different dishes. If you never had Korean barbecue before, it's the way that the Korean royalty used to eat, with several different cuts of meat barbecued right in front of you, open top, grill. The servers come and take care of all that food preparation, and they deliver endless amounts of these small dishes of banchan. And there's a lot of different food and wine pairing opportunities. I bring my own bottle whenever I come to Umbu. They charge me a little corkage fee, but they do have a nice wine list. And it's on Western, right in the heart of Koreatown. And I think you guys will be very impressed with the restaurant. And we're able to do it there at an all-inclusive price at $140 with dinner and wine. That's a good deal. And I hope you guys will think about joining us for that fun night out. And it's going to be a little loud and crazy. We'll pour just at least a dozen wines, maybe a few more, depending if we sell out or not. But limited to 24 guests, 6 per table. So it's going to be very social, very fun, very high energy. And I think you'll love it. So thank you all very much for joining us tonight. I hope to see you all again soon. Be well.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Amazing.
Thanks for Michigan.
Mhm.
Thanks, Reed. I hope it went well for you.
Great.
Awesome. Hope to see you again. Jeff, always good.
Thank you.
Susan, thank you. Lisa, Jennifer, wonderful comments. Thank you so much. David, you too. Bye, guys.
Loved it, Ian. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Wow.
Thank